All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon, and I'm an alcoholic. No, I'm actually Jessica, and I'm an alcoholic. People call me Jess. I'm going to keep it really simple. Do it like I was taught, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Thank you, Norman, for having me. It's always good to be back home. This is my home. It will always be my home. I did travel up from Scottsdale. How the fuck I ended up in Scottsdale, we will soon find out. Because that's a random place to be for someone like me. What it was like, what happened. So, I was born not too far from here, Kaiser, in Oakland. They recently tore down that building, but it's because they didn't see the plaque that I was born there before they did that. That's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. It's progress, not perfection, right? No, I grew up actually in Berkeley. Both my parents were probably one of us. I cannot identify them for them. There was a lot of violence, relative poverty in the home. You know, all the things that kind of come along with that. And when I was coming up, I learned how to deal with my problems. And that was either to not deal with them or to use my fists, really. I mean, I was very violent as a young person. I got into a lot of trouble. Saw the principal and the superintendent pretty often. And then that switched into, well, actually it came along with a lot of kleptomania. If it wasn't bolted down, it was coming with me. And when I first found alcohol, I was with my girlfriends at a friend's house. And it was on a cracking from the jump. And it wasn't really readily available right away, so when I could find it, I would consume it alcoholically, but it wasn't very frequent. In high school, that was like probably early junior high. In high school, I was on my way out of high school in ninth grade. I was barely making it through. And 10th grade, I got an assignment from my government and civics teacher, and it was like, you're either going to do some community service or you're going to write a paper. I'm like, I'll do some community service. I don't want to write a paper. So at the time, I was hooked up with the domestic violence victims advocate for the city of Berkeley because my father, we had a restraining order against him, and there was all this other stuff going on. And so I was able to do some community service through her, but through that, I also got linked up with the public health director and the domestic violence peer education group on Berkeley High School campus. And I ended up getting a job, and then another job. And so what I did was, instead of partying as much as I had my ninth grade year, I started actually working. So squeezing the balloon, too much over here, squeeze it, pops out over there. You know, it's whack-a-mole out here, right? But I didn't know any of that then. I did just barely enough to graduate from Berkeley High, and I wasn't really worried about my grades. I was more worried about that check. I liked the check. Went over to SF State. I moved out of my mom's house at 17 and was living in North Oakland, not too far from here, and it's a little different now than it was then, let me tell you. And I was in there for maybe 3 months, and the landlord was like, hey, yo, if you just leave, I won't even tell anybody. So I got my shit, and I moved over to Hunters Point with my girl, and we lived in her mama's basement. And we would ride through the point with her daddy's Pimp-mobile with like the fur and all the stuff inside. And it was funny because we would be teasing the dudes that were standing outside selling drugs all day, talking about you going to the University of Keith and Thomas, because they were standing on Keith and Thomas all damn day, right? But we wasn't going to SF State either, even though we were both enrolled. Within not too long of an amount of time, I ended up getting raped on Osceola in Hunters Point. And that was not the first time I had been raped. I'd been molested as a child. I'd been raped, lost my virginity to rape. So that was part of my story. But this particular one I used as a reason for dropping out of school completely, for going back to the East Bay, for saying, you know what, I'm good. I shouldn't be in that hood. I should be in the hood that I'm from. And, you know, let me just pull a rap to that. So I did that. But then not too long, my drinking and drugging career had already well taken off. It just continued to accelerate. I ended up on the track. I was on East 14th in San Pablo for a number of years. All the things that come along with that, whether it's drugs, violence, running from the police, going to jail, all that good stuff, was part of my story at that time. In 2004, I caught a case in Berkeley, and I had randomly filed a rape report with the SF Police Department way back in the day when I got that rape on Osceola. And I speak about it like I got a case or something, I caught that rape over there, But I had filed the paperwork, and it wasn't right away or nothing. It's not like I was like, oh shit, I just got raped, let me call the police. That's not how my brain functions around the police at all. But I've done that. So, fought the case with my public pretender. The judge sentenced me to 9-month deferment, community service, court order to stay out of contact with the police, and to get re-enrolled in SF State. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I can do that. Nothing about my life had changed, right? All the drugs are definitely part of my story. Lots of drugs, lots of alcohol. All the track stuff continued on. None of that changed. But I did the paperwork. I got re-enrolled in SF State. And another year passes, and I'm out in deep East Oakland with the dude I'm fucking with at the time, day before my 22nd birthday, and I'm fighting him for my keys. He wouldn't give me my keys. And I'm like, no, you're going to give me my keys. And it really doesn't matter how big you are. I don't give a shit. I'm still going to fight you. And I don't care if I know I'm going to lose. I'm going to get some damage in first. And I was clearly fucked up when I was doing all of this. It's probably why he didn't want to give me my keys, but that's not the reason why my brain was telling me he didn't want to give me my keys. He was trying to control me or some shit. So, got my keys back, got in my car, and was feeling quite done at that moment. Took my seatbelt off, closed my eyes, accelerated through down the block, my car 368, down the block, through a stop sign, hit a parked car, wrapped my car around a pole, was in ICU at Highland for half a second because I didn't have health insurance, so they booted me out. And at that time, I ended up fracturing my back, fucked my knee up. Apparently, I just learned last week I did something to my shoulder too, which this is 15 years later. Anyhow, that sat me down. I was in class, I passed all my classes, passed that quarter or that semester, and I was like, okay, well now I'm here, I'm back in school, I'm drinking every day, but I need to get a job, right? So what is an ex-ho with a record going to do? I know, I'll watch people's kids, because they don't do background checks, right? They do, they actually do. So I went on one interview with a nice couple in Laurel Heights, and they were like, okay, yes, this is amazing, and we'll just do a background check. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. I'm just going to exit here, and we will not see each other again. I did end up getting a nanny job for 2 women who shared custody of their daughter in the Castro Gaviz area, and started working for them, took care of the baby. She was 3, was a baby. Every day, pick her up from school and take her to the house, whatever. And I started to notice that this couple, these 2 women, lived very different lives than I had experienced before. My father had been court ordered to go to pyramid programs. He never went. It was I had heard about this thing, AA, but it was never a thing. And then I noticed these big old blue books hanging around these women's homes, and I'm like, started putting it together. They're sharing more of their story. I'm like, fuck, maybe I should get my shit together. I'm taking care of their baby. And I wouldn't come into the job fucked up, but I would certainly cut in leftover. The night before would have been nice and long, and then I'd come get the baby. So that spring, I started dropping into meetings. Couldn't hang on to more than a couple days. Ran into a meeting on Hayden Ashbury. I think it was the Clayton meeting or something. Walked in, there was 12 dudes sitting there. I was like, oh fuck, I'm in the wrong place. They're like, no, come on back. And I'm like, okay. And so I sat through that meeting, very uncomfortable, but I got my blue book. I got my big book. And so I still have that big book. And that was 2006. Still couldn't hang on to more than a couple days, bouncing into meetings, not really getting the shit. And then I entered to win some Mariah Carey tickets over that summer. What does this have to do with anything, right? I love me some Mariah Carey. And so that's everything that has to do with it. But actually, no. I was raised in a Pentecostal church in North Oakland, a black Pentecostal church, and this was by way of my friend's mamas because I'd be there on Sunday morning. They'd be like, Jessica, you need some Jesus, you going to church with us. Okay. I love church, though. I'm like, they feed you, you play hangman in the pews, they have a choir. Why the fuck wouldn't you want to go to church? It's fantastic. But that, of course, was when I was quite tiny. Anyhow, so entered to win some Mariah Carey tickets. Had my mama enter, had my sister enter, everybody enter because I want to win these tickets. And I was in my apartment in the TLs, and I didn't really pray, although I had some experience praying. And I prayed. I was like, God, please let me win these tickets. If you let me win these tickets, God, I promise I'll stop drinking. And then I won the fucking tickets. It wasn't right away, but I was like, there might be something to this whole God thing. I don't want to get struck down, So within 30 days, I was down at Jones and Eddie at first place, and in the TLs, and I walked in to the meeting without having had a drink for about 6 hours. And they're like, hey, you want to speak? I'm like, speak about what? Alcoholism. Oh yeah, sure, I can talk to you about alcoholism, sure. They quickly realized they had made an error. They did not ask me how much time I had. But they're like, thank you, you sit over here. And that was July 31st, 2006. And from there on, I think I had it figured out, right? The alcohol was the problem. It wasn't the cocaine or the ecstasy or the weed every day. It wasn't none of that. Or the hop every once in a while. It was the alcohol, right? So for 3 years, I rode on the no alcohol train, right? Not sober, not doing any programs, never stepping back into a meeting. But through that 3 years and that no alcohol train, with everything else included, I was able to get on the dean's list, study abroad in Sweden, transfer down to UC Santa Barbara. I felt like, oh fuck yeah, I've made it. Get down to Santa Barbara, and the rubber really met the road, and it wasn't good. It was not good. Went out to Vegas for a weekend with the dude I was dating at the time. He's like, oh, you can have a drink. I'm like, this much I knew about alcohol, right? No, I cannot have a drink, even though I'm fucking off on everything else, right? Just can't have a drink. He's like, no, just one. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll have a drink. And that drink was done, and it's like, all right, now time for the next drink. And he's like, no, just one. I was like, either you gonna buy me this drink, or this whole bar is gonna buy me this drink, but this drink is gonna happen. He wasn't buying me the drink, so the whole bar bought me the drink, and I didn't see him for the rest of the weekend. And we lived together, so it was kind of an awkward ride home. But from there, this is 2009, 2010, ups and downs. It's like, I pull it in, pull it back. It's always alcohol that's the problem, though. It's not my cocaine use, it's not my ecstasy use, it's none of this other shit. If I can just keep the alcohol under wraps, so it's all good. Yeah, okay. Did string it together long enough to graduate from UC Santa Barbara after having failed Calc 2 3 times. I had to switch from econ to feminist studies, but that was a God shot, and God has been holding my ass for a long time. I ended up working under the leading pornography scholar in the country, pornography black women scholar in the country, Dr. Maria Young, wrote my honors thesis on the decriminalization of sex work in the San Francisco Bay Area, and yes, and it was a beautiful thing. And I didn't know that there was sex work activism. I'm like, activism for sex work? There was even a measure on the ballot to decriminalize in Berkeley the same year I'm sitting in jail. I'm like, bitch, what's going on here? How am I being criminalized and I don't even know this shit exists? Okay, so that's actually the bridge I was really talking about a lot in that thesis. Either way, come back home to Oakland. Everybody's in the same fucking spot that I left in. It really doesn't motherfucking matter that I done traveled the world and studied abroad, gone down to UC Santa Barbara, graduated with honors. Bitch, I'm right back the same motherfucking place. Calling to the therapist I was seeing office the day after my birthday in September of 2010, having had a bunch of alcohol and a bunch of everything else the night before. And, saying, man, I just got to stop this shit, right? I know I got to stop this shit. She's like, well, maybe you should go to a meeting. Go to a meeting? Nah, bitch, I just need to stop drinking. What are you talking about? I got this shit figured out, right? So a couple more years passed. We're now in end of 2011. I just got out of jail for a DV case, because that's what happens when you don't drink alcohol and do everything else. And I was high school to Brown, 7 a.m., sun is coming up. Again, sunrises seem like nice things to a lot of people. I'm like, no, bitch, I don't want to be up when the sun is coming up. I'm sorry, that's an indication that something's very fucking wrong. At least that's my experience. It kind of gives me heart palpitations and shit, So, high school to Brown, 7 a.m., sun is coming up. Dude that I'm with, laying in the bed next to me, he's knocked the fuck out. I feel like my heart is going to pound out my chest. Something's really wrong here, I'm going to die. And I was living on East 15th and 25th, deep in East Oakland, a block off the fucking track that I thought I had motherfucking escaped years before, bitch. Oh yeah, you doing all this shit going to UC Santa Barbara and studying abroad in Sweden, bitch. How the fuck you end up a block off the track in a junior 1 bedroom with some cat, whatever, about to die? Okay, so that was my moment of clarity. I had to get fucking honest, and I did. I told dude, but he already knew, right? And then I went to my therapist, same fucking therapist. She's like, well, maybe you should go to a meeting. Fuck. All right, fine. So I started dropping into meetings. First, women's meetings in Alameda, go over the bridge. It was easy. Hung around there for a little bit, getting to at least one a week, right? Not really doing it. But then this lady comes up to me and she's like, do you have a sponsor? Do you want a sponsor? I'm like, yeah, I think I do want one of those. Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. And so we go and we sit down to work on 3/18/2012. And I was like, yeah, so, I ain't had a drink in a couple years. I stopped using Coke a couple months ago because that shit wasn't working out. But I smoke weed every day. It's not, weed doesn't count, right? And she's like, oh, no, you can't do that. This, it's California, honey. What are you talking about? This is the family business and everything. What do you do? What do you mean? And she's like, no, you can't do that. Okay. Then I have this pound of weed at the house because at the time my pops grew. And I was like, can I find a buyer for it first? She's like, no, you got to get rid of it. And I'm like, okay. So this woman is telling me, one, that I can't smoke weed, that on top of everything else that I've already quit, because don't you know that I'm stellar? I've already, I do this well, right? I don't really have to stop smoking, right? But okay, fine. And get rid of the pot. Okay, fine. So I threw the pot away and I stopped smoking weed, and it was all out of pure rebellion. This bitch thinks I can't do this shit. All right, fine, I'm gonna show her. And then she says, oh, you got to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. What? Okay, fine. I'll do that out of rebellion too. But slowly what started to happen was that there was a massive fucking change in me. And it was very slow at first. I remember being very early on in my 90 meetings in 90 days. In between is my home, FYI. That is the same, when I'm coming in, coming out, 47th and East 14th, baby, I didn't even know y'all was here. And they've been here forever, for decades, right? I'd come out of the meeting and I'd be like, yo, sponsor, right? I feel like I'm sick to my stomach, my body is going to jump out of my skin. What the fuck? She's like, this too shall pass. Bitch. I want to go on now. Now. She's like, have you prayed? What? No. This is not working. Can I get some relief here, please? And she wasn't having it. It was kind of disappointing. I expected a little bit more from a sponsor. But it was actually exactly what I fucking needed. So I continued on this path. And I came into the rooms with 3 pairs of pants and my 2 feet. Right? And I had gotten this hand-me-down bicycle because, step up. But this hand-me-down bicycle, every time you hit a bump, your seat would fall down, so you have to pull it back up and keep moving. And you know how Oakland is, so there's lots of bumps. So that was a really fun bike to ride. After a few more months, though, continuing to go to my meetings, continuing to work with my sponsor, getting through some of that step work, I had saved up a little bit of money, right? And so I'm like, oh, maybe I should buy a car, right? And mind you, this is 2012. Oakland is gentrifying like that. I don't know what the fuck you want to call it, but it's a massive gentrification in DV Oakland, and it makes me very angry. And so, again, out of rebellion, I'm like, maybe I should buy a house. And so 9 months sober, I started the mission of buying a house in East Oakland with $7,000. That's all I really had. But it was better than buying a car. So I rode my bicycle into my first house at 13 months sober. And there was a tiny 500 square foot house in Deep East Oakland, 62nd and Bromley. And it had technically one bedroom, had a second room off the back. That second room was hosting or housing women from Washington State, from Oakland, damn near immediately, who just needed a sober place to live. Within a couple of years, that 500 square foot house had 7 motherfuckers living in it. It had 2 single moms, 3 babies, myself, and a dog. And I believe firmly that anything that I've been given is not because it's for me, but it's because it's for the people who I'm traveling with or coming behind me. So, post that house, another house was purchased up the block, and then another one up the block, and then one in Toledo because my girl wouldn't buy a house, and I was like, bitch, you need to buy a house. Black woman from Berkeley and like you put yourself to PhD and all this shit. Like, no, you need to buy a house. So we worked that out. She got her name on the deed, which is exactly how it should be. And now, about a year and a half ago, house number 5, bought it as an investment in Scottsdale and go down there, and I'm supposed to set it up and come back home, right? And I'm also, in all of this time, I believe firmly that, like, I didn't do all my dirt here, I didn't recover here just to fucking bounce from here, right? Like, I need to reinvest in the space that's taken such good fucking care of me and that I've destroyed in the process. And so I had some real hard times about actually excavating or leaving from the space that I'd done all that, right? So I never considered, like, Scottsdale was for me. I bought the house sight unseen and all this shit, right? Like, it's like higher power throws shit against the wall, but sticks is my way, right? I don't fucking know. And I get down there and it's like, it's real quiet and it's real nice. And I'm like, maybe I could stay here instead of going back to Oakland. And so over like another 6 months, I made the decision to actually stay in Scottsdale. Don't know that it's for me, to be completely honest. Still adjusting, like massively adjusting. But that's how I ended up in Scottsdale. Now, all of this is really nice to think about and to look at because it's easy to understand the financial growth of somebody, right? So you can kind of say, oh, well, they went from absolutely fucking nothing and living on the streets to all of this like perceived wealth, right? But what really changed and what was really the most like investment worthy in this last, 10 years now, was my spiritual condition. Was the service that I get to do. Anything, as I said, that's given to me is not for me. It's for the people that I'm traveling with and the people that are coming behind me. And that includes in the rooms, but it also includes out in the street. So I was a mentor at Youth Impact Hub for 6 years, helping young people 18 to 24 years old build social impact businesses here in Oakland. Because at 18 to 24 years old, yes, I motherfucking was an entrepreneur, but it wasn't legal, And so, like, now I get to help some people, like, maybe make it legal for them, right? The homes, of course, being available to house people, always had a room for rent, always had a space for people who are trying to, like, mostly women. I say people, but to be completely honest, it's women who want to recover, right? Because this shit ain't easy. It's not a fucking straight line. It's ups and downs, and we all need somebody to be able to be there for us and so that we can turn that around for the next person that's coming behind us or traveling with us too. That all to say, service is a huge component, right? I've also held like technical AA positions, certainly, right? Secretary meetings, treasurer, GSR, all that good stuff. The spiritual piece, though, is where I live at the most today. I'm still of service and like I have sponsees in 3 different states actually, which is fucking nuts. But the spiritual piece is where I live the most. And the reason why I say that is because when I first came in and this same sponsor was like, you're going to need to find a higher power. I'm like, higher power? Okay, well, the only higher power I've known is God. And that's a dude. And, when you get on your knees and you somebody like me to a dude, that's a transaction. So we're going to have to figure this one out. So lack of a better word, I call my higher power Gaia. She travels with me everywhere. What I've been able to take from Gaia, not take from Gaia, but like kind of like launch pad off of Gaia, right, is multiple spirit animals. I've met my inner child. My little girl, when I first met her, was in chains. She was manny as fuck. I call her the wolf girl. I mean, almost like me as a 3rd grader. Like, her hair is just, I'm a white girl, but nappy, like, and so I don't even know if that's technically possible, but you know what I'm saying. Anyhow, meeting her, like today, that little girl stands up straight. She rides on the back of my other spirit animals, Tichalan, which is like a prehistoric hawk-like bird. And the spiritual experiences that I get to have in nurturing her growth is something that I could not have ever imagined. None of this could I have imagined. I couldn't have imagined saying, I'm flying from Scottsdale up to Oakland to speak at a meeting on a Friday night for Halloween. That's nuts, But with that spiritual growth, I get to not only re-raise her, but I get to re-raise me. And I get to find myself in all my proclivities in this world and understand that this thing isn't straight, it's not linear, and it's going to go up and down, but boy, it's beautiful. And I don't know how to say, I don't really, at this moment, I'm actually struggling, which I don't usually struggle to talk, to how to communicate this. If I can impart anything to anybody, it's just that, don't limit yourselves to your wildest dreams of today, because you'll be selling yourself short. And our imaginations are so fucking limited. I could never have dreamed the life that I have today. I could never have dreamed the tribe that I have today. And I keep saying that, like when I'm down in Scottsdale, I'm like, I'm trying to find my tribe. I can't find them. But I picked, I can tap into a meeting anywhere, Scottsdale or otherwise, and be right in the middle of my fucking tribe, And so, it's just one day at a time. If you're new, give yourself a chance. Have some compassion for yourself. Follow some simple instructions. They're not easy, but they are simple. And I think that's about it.